Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théères, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte.
With you in your story that just broke, let me read the first couple paragraphs and then you take it from there. You write, Trump's gripes against McCabe included wife's politics, Comey's ride home. The day after President Donald Trump fired James Comey, he became so furious watching television footage of the ousted FBI director boarding a government-funded plane from Los Angeles back to Washington, D.C., that he called the Bureau's acting director, Andrew McCabe, to vent and to know why Comey was allowed to fly home on an FBI plane after he had been fired, these people said. McCabe told the president he hadn't been asked to authorize Comey's flight, but if anyone had asked, he would have approved it. The president was silent for a moment, then turned on McCabe. Quote, ask your wife how it feels to be a loser, Trump said. McCabe replied, okay, sir. Trump hung up the phone. Carol, I don't know how else to put this. I talked to a couple of the president's friends, and I said, he comes off as such a jerk. And this person said he sure does.
Well, certainly McCabe was taken aback by this phone call. We spoke to several people who he had told about it. I think what this illustrates is it's just another kind of data point into what this was like for McCabe serving under President Trump. We've seen a number of things have come to light about private conversations that the president has had, and this is another instance where you can see this president who just really distrusted McCabe from the start. And so you have, at one hand, the acting director whose boss was just fired and being insulted by the sitting president, insulting his wife. And then you have a president who feels justified in that because he thinks that there's this conspiracy of bias at the top ranks of the FBI that are out to get him. The other thing that it illustrates is just how much the president was so angry about James Comey that it wasn't enough to just fire him, and he fired him very unceremoniously. You'll remember that. But he just wanted him to be stranded, almost in this kind of, apprentice-like way, and that he was irritated that he would even be able to board this government-funded plane and return to California, and that was what precipitated the call.
Paul Butler, does it go to the president's state of mind that he's so obsessive about punishment, that he's so obsessed with retaliation, that he's so, it's like he wanted the image of Jim Comey, sitting in a middle seat on a Southwest flight with 6 stops back to New York or back to D.C. I mean, does it go to his state of mind that he's so obsessive about punishing people that he views are against him? When Andy McCabe was also the deputy director of the FBI, when Jim Comey released a letter, I think 10 days before the election, reopening the investigation into Hillary Clinton's emails and wanting to inform Congress that he had found more emails on Anthony Weiner's laptop.
It is Tuesday, January 30th of 2018, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam. It's the State of the Union tonight, folks. Quite a constitutional crisis, or we are on the precipice of a constitutional crisis, folks. Andrew McCabe forced out of his position yesterday, a little bit earlier than when he was set to retire. Apparently he's on what's known as terminal leave so that he can get his full pension. The guy's a 22-year FBI veteran. Headed the counterintelligence unit there. Investigated and got convictions on the Boston Marathon bombers. Overseas, investigated quite a few terrorist acts and tragedies and brought convictions on those. Since he's a leader in counterintelligence, it's no wonder that Donald Trump would have him pushed out. Also coming on the heels that Donald Trump has decided, well, he's not going to sign that bill or push the bill about Russian sanctions that won by a bipartisan majority. And on the same day that Trump decided, I'm not going to enforce these Russian sanctions because, all my investments are there, Mike Pompeo, the CIA director, divulges that yes, indeed, Russia is still actively involved and will impact and affect our 2018 midterms. So no wonder Trump doesn't want to enforce those sanctions. The whole of the Republican Party is expecting Russian help in the midterms. Of course they can do everything that they're doing. No one likes it. Everybody wants to vote them out, but they are acting like they expect help from the Russians again. And apparently Mike Pompeo agrees. And of course, the clip at the top, that is, Nicole Wallace and others taking Trump to task. He is a jerk. Can you believe this guy wants to leave Comey stranded? Calls McCabe's wife a loser? I went on social media. I'm a lot different than McCabe. I would have reacted considerably different. And I wouldn't. The only way I would have brought his wife in it is I would have asked how she feels being married to a porn star effing mobbed up traitor. How does she feel about that? Well, we have a lot to talk about today, and so much news coming in. Trump's going to have a pretty big payday tonight on the State of the Union. They're going to scroll the names of donors to the Trump campaign during the State of the Union. What's up with that? That sounds like Carnival Barker stuff. Well, of course, it sounds like it because it is. Excuse me, I didn't mean to yell. Getting back to this whole Nunes and McCabe being ousted. Well, of course, the Republicans have opened an investigation into the FBI and the Department of Justice. Now, apparently what they're doing is that the IG report that should be released soon on McCabe, I believe, found out some anti-Hillary Clinton work. And that was just unbecoming of members of the FBI. So the Republicans are now going to investigate the FBI and the Department of Justice for being so terrible against Hillary. We have to destroy the whole institution. All of it. And I will tell you, I know I'm not supposed to be getting on the case of my fellow Americans, but I am an American, and there's a lot of dimwit Americans out there that would fall for this. That's why it's being called a spin memo, or more definitively, a brainwashing memo. They are brainwashing their lizard brain followers into believing something that is absolutely not true. And they've had a lot of practice. Haven't they? I mean, come on. WMDs? Know that one? MS-13. Yeah, MS-13 is decapitating people all over America. And my brother, the ex-cop, has the videos. I tried to point out that, first of all, I don't watch these videos. But what I do know of them is that those aren't American streets. Those are Honduran and Colombian streets, and sometimes Mexican. I know. Okay, so what are the issues that we will be attending to today? They are: jackpotting hackers steal over $1 million from ATMs across the U.S. Jackpotting. We'll find out what that is. A federal judge halts the deportation of prominent immigrant rights activist Ravi Ragbir. And Fusion GPS accused U.S. Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman Chuck Grassley of endangering its employees by ignoring multiple requests not to publicly disclose their names. Now let's be clear. The whole Koch brother network is through anonymous donors because they fear people might not like it if their names are exposed. But it's okay to go after the company that used the steal work. It's not a dossier, by the way. It keeps getting that's also another part of the brainwashing. It is not a dossier. It is raw work. Okay? And let's also be clear. I know I'm kind of going off on a little tangent here, but let's be clear. This counterintelligence program predated the steal work by, 15, 20, maybe more years? And then the most recent aspect of it is from 2013 when Carter Page was caught being recruited and then actually becoming a Russian agent. And this is what they have in this Nunez memo to counter that, the FBI planned it decades ago and just was waiting for someone like Carter Page so that they get him to take down Trump. They've been harassing Trump all these years. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's what mobsters think, isn't it? After the break, we'll move to the chef's table where Trump's pick for Chile ambassador has deep financial ties to the Kushner family that the White House did not announce earlier this month. They never do. And Andrew McCabe's replacement, David Bowditch, is now next to face the Trump firing squad. And all that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Dansez maintenant sous l'été, les pieds nus dans le sable. Dansez maintenant et jetez vos ennuis dans les vagues qui dansent.
Well, we had a bit of a technical problem. There was an industry-wide security fix, as I mentioned yesterday. And it took them a little bit of time. And, of course, there's always something that will happen along the chain. And we were a part of that chain, we being Netroots Radio. So our homepage is still down, though our crew did work with the vendors who were doing the security fix and have actually fixed our problem. But it takes a little bit of time, apparently, for the server to catch up and reset for the fix. And everything's turned on, so our homepage should become active later on in the day. They gave us a 24-hour window. And so that was last night, around 6-ish to 7-ish, and West Coast time, by the way. So hopefully by this afternoon, early evening, I'm hoping earlier, I keep my fingers crossed, I keep checking, that the homepage with our homepage player will be available. And also, that's where our contribute donate buttons are. And we got bills to pay, folks, especially after these security fixes. Who knew? All right. Podcasts can be had by way of Spreaker. And I post those up, links to that on all social media platforms as well, Facebook and Twitter. And so look for those. And what else? Well, I know what I wanted to say. It's Terrytown Chowder Tuesdays. Of course, that's our daily special. I should have mentioned that at the very beginning. This McCabe ouster has really gotten me mad. Especially when I consider, I know I'm going off on tangents, but this really makes me peeved. Remember, and David mentioned this earlier in his show. Remember that recording that came out and McCarthy was said, "Oh, I was only joking," about the two people in America who were biggest on Putin's payroll was Rohrabacher and Trump, and the attendees there tittered in their little nervous laughter, and then Paul Ryan said, "Yeah, but let's all keep this quiet for the team." Remember that? Okay, so. These revelations that Nunes is going to release, I think it says a little bit about how they've known about this for a long time, and they want to ride the wave because they think they can survive it. And I'll just remind folks that the mayor in the original Red Dawn, the little toady to the Russians when they invaded, he did not fare well. Okay? They hate the... they being, the KGB and the Russian types trying to take over our country. They actually hate the ones that become the toadies even more because they're losers. I wonder where Trump got it. Okay. A coordinated group of hackers likely tied to international crime syndicates, Russian, has pilfered more than $1 million by hijacking ATM machines across the U.S. and forcing them to spit out bills like slot machines dispensing a jackpot. Within the past few days, there have been about a half dozen successful jackpotting attacks, officials have said. The heists, which involve hacking ATMs to rapidly shoot out torrents of cash, have been observed across the United States, spanning from the Gulf Coast in the southern part of the country to the New England region of the Northeast. Matthew O'Neill, a special agent in the Criminal Investigations Division, told Reuters in an interview, "I certainly hope there's some sanctions against these Russian crime syndicates. Nah. They're earners. Come on. I'm sure that Trump's getting his cut." The speed of attacks represented the first widespread jackpotting activity in the U.S., O'Neill said. Previous campaigns have been spotted in parts of Europe and Latin America. It was just a matter of time until it hit our shores, O'Neill said, and now it has. The Diebold Nexoff Incand NRC Corp., two of the largest ATM makers, warned last week that cyber criminals are targeting ATMs with tools needed to carry out jackpotting schemes. The alert described steps that criminals had used to compromise ATMs. They included gaining physical access, replacing the hard drive, and using an industrial endoscope to depress an internal button required to reset the device. Wow. It's not all on software, folks. Well, I guess it is, kind of. A confidential U.S. Secret Service alert seen by Reuters and sent to banks on Friday said machines running XP were more vulnerable and encouraged ATM operators to update to Windows 7. Aren't we past Windows 10 already? Come on. Okay, and the attack, which appeared to be targeting ATMs located typically in pharmacies, big box retailers, and drive-thrus. While initial intelligence suggested only ATMs running on outdated Windows XP software were being targeted, the Secret Service has seen successful attacks within the past 48 hours on machines running updated Windows 7. Well, maybe they should go to Windows 10. I know everybody hated Windows 10. This isn't one magical solution to solve the problem, O'Neill said. A local electronic crimes task force in Washington, D.C. metropolitan area first reported an unsuccessful jackpotting attempt last week. A few days later, another local partner witnessed similar activity and developed intelligence that indicated a sustained, coordinated attack was likely to occur over the next 2 weeks. O'Neill said he declined to say whether and who and where that partner was located. I wonder if it was the Danes. You know, they were the ones that first told us that they had hacked, or they had hacked into Fancy Bear. Now, I know that there's been some speculation that's not the case, but the Europeans seem to take this report quite seriously, and the Dutch even had video or tapes. They had hacked into a closed-circuit TV security camera in the area and watched these hackers go in and out of the building that they were hacking from so they could identify him. Interesting. I wonder who that partner was. Now, jackpotting has been rising worldwide in recent years, though it is unclear how much cash has been stolen because victims and police often do not disclose details. That's interesting.
Maintenant et jetez vos ennuis dans les vagues qui dansent, balancent au gré du vent salé. Dansez maintenant tout l'été.
Now, I'm not the only one that's been calling DHS and ICE modern-day Gestapo in their roundup of immigrants and the heartlessness of it. And now it seems that they're using some techniques and that you would only see in banana republics or extreme authoritarian regimes. And now you see it in America. Well, we finally caught up with some other parts of the world. Yep, I guess we're no longer the beacon on the hill. This is by Luke Barnes, out of Think Progress. A federal judge ordered the release of Ravi Ragbir, an immigrant rights activist who was taken into custody by ICE agents during what was supposed to be a routine check-in earlier this month. Judge Kathleen B. Forrest ruled that Ragbir's due process rights have been violated by ICE's abrupt and unnecessary detention. Taking such a man, and there are many such men and women like him, and subjecting him to what is rightfully understood as no different or better than penal detention is certainly cruel, Forrest wrote. We as a country need and must not act so. The Constitution commands better. Well, Ragbir, who immigrated from Trinidad and Tobago in 1991 and has been a permanent resident in the U.S. since 1994, was suddenly told that he would be deported during his routine check-in with ICE on January 11th, which caused him to collapse. A legal resident, he's got a green card. His routine check-in, and they said, your politics really aren't what we want in America right now because we're wearing jack boots and you're black. No room for you at the inn. See that big T on the end? That big T up there? Yeah. Well, news of his detention drew outrage, and protesters lined the street outside the Javits Federal Building in Manhattan to prevent Ragbir from being taken away. 18 people were arrested, including 2 members of the New York City Council, which was reported here at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy when it happened. Now, the nature of Ragbir's detention has infuriated activists as well as a number of elected officials. Last week, 30 congressional Democrats and 1,800 community organizations and individuals sent letters to Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen calling for Ragbir's release. She probably said she didn't know that Trinidad and Tobago had blacks. I didn't know that. Okay, the attempted deportation of Ragbir is only the latest example of ICE agents targeting immigration activists under the Trump administration. In their 26 January letter to Secretary Nielsen, the 30 legislators expressed their concern about ICE targeting immigration activists. Despite their goodwill, the majority of these leaders face separation from communities they call home. And of course, the white supremacists said, we don't want them calling this home. There's a clear, appalling pattern of ICE targeting leaders in the immigrant community who are speaking out against Trump's anti-immigrant agenda, said New York Reps Nadia Velasquez and Joe Crowley. This practice is morally unacceptable and has a chilling effect on leaders who stand up for their rights and their neighbors. We intend to hold DHS and ICE accountable to find out why this is happening. And Velasquez also invited Ragbir's wife, Amy Gottlieb, to attend Trump's State of the Union speech on Tuesday evening. And Gottlieb said it was likely to be a fascinating experience.
Je te donne c'est mon amour pour la vie entière. La promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle, c'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer, mes automnes quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers.
Last offering here at the Bistro Cafe, part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Terrytown Chowder Tuesdays, is out of Raw Story by Mark Hosenbell. And it's out of Raw Story, but really it's Reuters by way of Raw Story and reporting by Mark Hosenball. The research firm behind the so-called Trump dossier, I hate that. It's not a dossier. Well, they accused U.S. Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman and Russian dupe, or convenient Russian idiot, Chuck Grassley on Monday of endangering its employees by ignoring multiple requests not to publicly disclose their names. In a letter to Grassley, which also criticized Lindsey Graham, lawyers for Washington-based Fusion GPS said their firm had twice reported unspecified threats to the police and had tried to keep its employees' names confidential because of well-founded concerns about their public safety. Anybody who is in a public position who goes against Trump gets profound and very dangerous threats on their safety and health. It could be an elected official. It could be a small business owner. They don't stop. This is it's sort of like brown shirt activity. Okay, let's be clear on this. Well, Fusion hired former British intelligence officer Christopher Steele to compile the dossier that included allegations about contacts between then presidential candidate Donald Trump's campaign, his advisors, and Russia. The document has since become the focus of attacks by Trump and his supporters because it has money laundering in it. Everybody talks about the PP tape. The compromat is on money laundering and other financial crimes as well. Okay. Fusion's lawyers complained that the names of Fusion employees were publicly disclosed in 6 letters issued last week by Grassley and Graham, although the company's lawyers on multiple occasions asked committee staff members to avoid doing so. Do they care? I mean, they outed Valerie Plame. The Republicans. Okay. And I didn't see very many Republicans coming to Valerie Plame's defense. They were part and parcel of it because she threatened, and her husband, Wilson, threatened, the prevailing brainwashing spin. Some of these employees are not yet 30 years old. Others have children. We also hope that nothing happens to these good people simply because of your office's labored efforts to defend this president or please the editorial pages of the Wall Street Journal. This is what happens. The disclosure of names like this is, it precipitates convenient heart attacks. Convenient falling out of a 5-story window moving a piano, but you don't own a piano. Convenient murders in the lobby of your apartment building. Convenient murders coming down the steps of your apartment building. Convenient polonium poisonings. Etc., etc., etc. The lawyers for Fusion also accused Grassley's office of leaking confidential information it obtained from Fusion GPS and its founder, former Journal reporter Glenn Simpson. Spokesman for Senator Dianne Feinstein, the top Democrat on the Judiciary Committee, did not respond to a request for comment. And Grassley and Graham also didn't respond because, they want to release that House memo too. Okay? Yes. All right. Which reminds me, the Nunez is releasing his memo. Why don't the House Democrats on that committee pull a Feinstein and release their memo? Just do it. Let's get to our break, and we'll come back and go through the weather and finish up at the chef's table. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Take Two Movie Review. I'm Mike Friend. This week, if Epicurus had considered film. The coming-of-age convention is a common one for a director who wants to tell an existential story, but Luca Guadagnino's screen adaptation of the 2007 novel, Call Me By Your Name, takes the device to a new level. The story picks up with an American, Elio, son of an antiquities professor, beginning his 17th summer in a villa in the northern Italian countryside of 1983. He spends his time reading, playing the piano, and socializing with similarly aged locals. It's gonna be great. But right about then, Elio's dad announces that a graduate assistant, Oliver, would be joining them for the summer, displeasing Elio, who must now vacate his bedroom for the visitor. Oliver, played by Armie Hammer, is 25, visually stunning, and as smart as he is attractive. Though Elio is dating a local girl and Oliver is cautious for professional reasons and has an interest in women as well, the two begin an intense physical relationship, one we all know has an expiration date. Timothée Chalamet stunningly shepherds the Elio character through the adolescent angst of the summer, not ending actually until the winter holidays. At that point, we get an extended shot of his face with the sound of a crackling fire, which marks the turning of a chapter of life, not merely the end of a movie. Another performance of note is that of Michael Stolbart as Elio's accepting dad, whose confessional monologue near the finale is worth the price of admission. Everything works together here, and it's all beautiful, literally. Beautiful scenery, beautiful food and wine, beautiful bodies, both of the living and the long dead, as in the recovered statues that hold the professors in Oliver's academic interest. Those with such an interest in film are already in awe of Call Me By Your Name, and you will be too. This has been Take Two Movie Review. I'm Mike Friend. Catch up with us at take2moviereview.com and feed us back on our page on YouTube.
This program is presented by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Welcome to A Cup of Health with CDC, a weekly feature of the MMWR, the Morbidity and Mortality Weekly Report. I'm your host, Dr. Kathleen Dooling. From a very young age, we're encouraged to eat fruits and vegetables. Unfortunately, many Americans are not getting the message. Dr. Seung-Hee Lee Kwan is with CDC's National Center for Chronic Disease Prevention and Health Promotion. She's joining us today to discuss the importance of eating enough fruits and vegetables. Welcome to the show, Seung-Hee.
Thank you for having me.
Seung-Hee, what is the recommended amount of fruits and vegetables?
The federal guidelines recommend that adults consume at least 1.5 cups to 2 cups of fruit and 2 to 3 cups of vegetables each day. This is for adults who get less than 30 minutes of physical activity a day. Adults who are more physically active need more calories and thus should be eating more fruits and vegetables. 1 cup is about 12 strawberries or 1 large tomato.
How many people consume the recommended amount of fruits and vegetables?
We found that very few adults are getting enough fruits and vegetables. Just 12% are eating the recommended amount of fruits, and less than 1 in 10 eat enough vegetables. And consumption is lower among men, young adults, and adults living in poverty.
Why is eating a diet rich in fruits and vegetables so important?
Eating a diet rich in fruits and vegetables can help with 3 things. 1, it can reduce the risk of many leading causes of illness and deaths, such as heart disease, type 2 diabetes, some cancers, and even obesity. It can also add important nutrients that are commonly missing in Americans' diet. And it can help with weight management if adults consume fruits and vegetables instead of other calorie-dense foods.
How can we meet the recommended daily intake of fruits and vegetables?
Try to fill half of your plate with fruits or vegetables at each meal or every eating occasion. Making fruits and vegetables the focal point of your meal will help you meet your recommendations. For example, recent studies have shown that adults get most of their fruit during breakfast and snacks. So you can try adding berries to your morning oatmeal or grab a piece of fresh fruit as an afternoon snack. For vegetables, most adults eat them at dinner, so try adding more into your lunch by adding a side salad or packing a snack of baby carrots or grape tomatoes.
Are canned or frozen products just as good as fresh?
All forms of fruits and vegetables count towards meeting the recommendations. For the most health benefits, make sure that the fruits and vegetables you consume have a limited amount of salt, butter, sugar, or creamy sauces. When selecting canned fruits, choose the ones with lowest sugars. And for canned or frozen vegetables, choose those lower in sodium.
Where can listeners get more information about eating a healthy diet?
Listeners can go to cdc.gov/nutrition or choosemyplate.gov.
Thanks, Seung-hee. I've been talking today with Seung-hee Lee Kwon about the importance of eating a healthy diet. Eating a diet rich in fruits and vegetables can help reduce the risk of many leading causes of illness and death and add important nutrients to your diet. Make sure you're eating enough. Until next time, be well. This is Dr. Kathleen Dooling for A Cup of Health with CDC.
For the most accurate health information, visit cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO.
This is Scientific American's 60-Second Science. I'm Jason Goldman. Got a minute? The giraffe is an icon of the African savanna. The lion is the top predator of the ecosystem. Both animals face uncertain futures, and both are the subjects of intense, ongoing conservation work. Now, a study suggests that saving one might mean bad news for the other.
When I was out in the field, I heard anecdotes from people that in one of my study sites there were very few juvenile giraffes because apparently the lions in the area had developed a preference for taking young giraffes.
University of Bristol biologist Zoe Muller. Working in Kenya's Great Rift Valley, she focused her attention on 2 neighboring sites, a national park with lots of lions and a privately owned conservancy with no lions. In the lion-free conservancy, 26% of the giraffes were less than 1 year old. But in the lion-filled park, juvenile giraffes made up only 5% of the species population.
So I was able to show, really, that actually in the presence of lions, the number of juveniles is severely reduced by 83%, which was a lot higher than I thought it would be. And quite shocking, actually.
Giraffe populations have declined by some 40% in the last 30 years, with fewer than 98,000 individuals left in the wild. In recognition of those figures, they've recently been classified as vulnerable, that is, likely to become endangered. The ongoing loss of juveniles could lead to a situation where the population crashes, since population growth and stability both rely on having enough calves survive to sexual maturity, so they too can breed and produce offspring of their own. The study compares only 2 sites in East Africa, but it highlights the extreme complexity of wildlife management in Africa, where the recovery of one species could potentially come at the cost of another.
Unfortunately, in East Africa, most of the conservation areas these days are fenced and enclosed, and so this is going to become an increasingly more common problem where we find that predators are being enclosed in specific areas.
Allowing for the conservation of both species in the same areas is thus a tricky proposition. Mueller says that one possibility might be to translocate giraffes into and out of lion-free areas, or to translocate lions into and out of places with lots of giraffes. If we do that, we may help ensure the two species' survival. But are they still truly wild? Thanks for the minute. For Scientific American's 60-Second Science, I'm Jason Goldman.
What happens when the police use less deadly force, make fewer arrests, and stop engaging in unconstitutional stop and frisk?
My name is Ramsey Clark, and this is the Civil Liberties Minute with ACLU attorney Bill Newman.
In 1990, there were 2,245 killings in New York City. As of the end of December 2017, there were 286, a reduction of 87%. 87%! When New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio ran for that office on a pledge to stop and frisk, that's the police practice of stopping and frisking persons, disproportionately people of color, for no legitimate law enforcement reason, his opponents claimed that to retreat from stop and frisk would create mayhem in the streets. But they were wrong. No such thing happened. In fact, quite the opposite. Crime, especially serious crime, has gone down. A lot. De Blasio and Police Commissioner James P. O'Neill credit the crime reduction to focusing police activity on gangs and repeat offenders and building trust in communities. The history and the data demonstrate that adherence to constitutional Fourth Amendment principles regarding search and seizure is good for the community, good for the police, and good for making the city safer for everyone.
The Civil Liberties Minute is made possible by the ACLU because freedom can't protect itself.
Welcome to 60 Second Civics, the daily podcast of the Center for Civic Education. I'm Mark Gage. One of the main purposes of government is to protect our freedom. The First Amendment to our Constitution protects our freedom of expression. This is what the First Amendment says about freedom of expression. Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble, and to petition government for a redress of grievances. As you can see, this section of the First Amendment includes several important freedoms. Freedom of expression is freedom of speech, of the press, of assembly, and of petition. The right of assembly is the right to meet with others to discuss your beliefs, ideas, or feelings. The right to petition means to ask the government to take action or change its policies, or to ask for a redress of grievances, that is, for the government to grant a remedy for a perceived wrong. It is important to understand that the First Amendment limits the powers of Congress. It prevents Congress from placing unreasonable and unfair limits on freedom of expression. That is why the amendment begins with the phrase, Congress shall make no law. That's all for today's podcast, 60 Second Civics, where civic education only takes a minute.
There's a robot in your future, but not one of those cute little labor-saving automatons like a Roomba vacuum cleaner. Far from saving you from doing extra labor, this new wave of robots is being brought into your workplace to rescue corporate bosses from paying you to work for them. Oh, you might think, not my workplace, for I'm not a factory worker. I've got a college degree and I work with my brain, so no contraption doing rote mechanical tasks can take my job. But wait, these are thinking machines, implanted with complex neural networks and super-fast algorithmic computers that operate in sync, functioning much like the cluster of specialized cells in the human brain. These brainy bots have a fast-evolving ability to watch, listen, and learn on their own, even able to produce and teach other robots. Not only are they displacing flesh and blood workers on factory assembly lines, but millions of them are now being moved into professional, managerial, creative, and other occupations previously assumed to be the secure domains of higher-educated, higher-paid people, maybe even you. To be clear, it's not robots that are taking our jobs, but corporate profiteers. They're creating a robot economy in order to displace you and me with inexpensive machines that don't demand higher wages or health care, don't take sick days or vacations, and don't organize unions, file lawsuits, or vote for pro-worker politicians. It's to be a plutocratic utopia designed by and for the corporate elite, and they're pushing it hard and fast, hoping we the people don't wake up until it's too late. This is Jim Hightower saying, robots are not our enemy. The corporate bosses, bankers, and BSers who own robots are the ones doing this to us, and now is the time for all of us whom they're about to discard to rebel against their socially destructive greed.
Need an antidote to the progressive blues? Want some good news about how grassroots folks are rebelling against the corporate powers and winning? Well, here's an easy-to-swallow pill for you, the Hightower Lowdown. Hightower's monthly newsletter will give you the lowdown, even as it lifts you up. It's 4 pages a month, jam-packed with facts you can use, actions you can take, and Jim's own Texas humor, all for only $15 a year. To become a lowdowner, go to hightowerlowdown.org.
From United Nations headquarters in New York, this is your World in 2 Minutes. I'm your host, Luke Vargas, for Talk Media News. President Trump delivered remarks to the World Economic Forum meetings in Davos, Switzerland on Friday, saying that between recent tax cuts and the elimination of regulations, it was the perfect time to bring foreign businesses to the United States. On trade, Trump condemned unfair economic practices and subsidies, but just days after America's former trade partners in the TPP deal finalized their new agreement, he seemed to express some free trade envy.
The United States is prepared to negotiate mutually beneficial bilateral trade agreements with all countries. This will include the countries in TPP, which are very important. We have agreements with several of them already. We would consider negotiating with the rest, either individually or perhaps as a group, if it is in the interests of all.
Trump is due back in Washington on Friday evening. Turkey will expand anti-Kurdish military operations in Syria to include the entire border zone east to Iraq. That statement Friday from Turkish President Recep Erdogan means the Turkish military could soon run into American troops holding down territory liberated from the Islamic State. Turkey contends America's Kurdish allies are terrorists. And WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange had his day in court on Friday, or at least his lawyer did. Assange remains in the Ecuadorian embassy in London, where he's sought shelter since 2012. His lawyers contend that since criminal charges against Assange from Sweden were dropped, he should be free to leave without fearing arrest. But the British government contends Assange must still surrender to authorities for violating the terms of a previous parole, and that he shouldn't be awarded with immunity for successfully evading the law. A judge will rule on Assange's case on February 6th. Luke Vargas, The United Nations.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Terrytown Chowder Tuesdays. And while we are now, comfortably ensconced at the cafe table, now that we are comfortably ensconced at the Chef's Table, let's have a little palate cleanser with the weather. Starting off along the banks of the Rogue River in the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon, it is currently 44 degrees Fahrenheit, slated for a high of 52. We did have quite a bit of rain overnight. Some smattering of splatters of rain throughout the day. Looks like, I said we'll have a high of 52, a low tonight of 35. Decreasing chance of rain, though moisture and cells of moisture are in the area. Winds are light and variable right now to the west-northwest. They'll increase out of the west-northwest to 5 to 10 miles per hour later on. Air quality index is good at 35 parts per million. It's not good enough for my mom, so I'm going to keep care of her. And looks like pressure, we've been fighting low and high pressure. It is right now a bit of high pressure at 30.13 inches. Visibility is 4 miles, and humidity is 88%. Weather from around the world is brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased, and these people live around the world. London is 47 and cloudy. Paris is 52 and cloudy. Rome is 56 and partly cloudy. Kiev is 38 and mostly cloudy with wind. Kabul is 33 with smoke. Hong Kong is 47 and raining. Tokyo is 37 and partly cloudy. Sydney, Australia is 66 and cloudy with wind. San Francisco, California is 50 degrees and sunny. And New York is 32 degrees Fahrenheit and cloudy. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased, and these people live around the world. It looks like the ambassador to Chile has deep financial ties to the Trump family, and, well, I'm sorry, to the Kushner family, and then by way of marriage to Trump as well, because Trump picked him. This is by Jessica Kwong out of Newsweek. Now, this guy, Andrew Gellert, is a prominent businessman and president of Gellert Global Group in New Jersey, whom Trump nominated on 4 January, but the White House statement did not disclose that he is the son of George Gellert, a close friend of Kushner's father, Charles. You know, the guy who went to jail for a while. That guy. The older men for decades have partaken in handshake deals, and the most notable of their shared interest is 666 Fifth Avenue, the one that they were trying to get the Chinese to buy, and that deal fell through. The one where they're trying to get Russian financing, and I don't know. It keeps falling through because of all of the light, the antiseptic light that has been cast upon it. Okay. Kushner Companies owns 50.5% of the 41-story building, and the Gellerts have a substantial portion of that share. Okay, well, a White House spokesman for Jared Kushner did not respond to a request for comment on his relationship to Andrew Gellert, and Kushner Companies, a spokeswoman from them, declined to comment. The White House press release stated that Andrew Gellert leads an enterprise consisting of many North American food importing companies, including Atalanta Corporation, the largest privately held food importer in the U.S. He has helped his company expand into exporting dried fruits and nuts from Chile, but speaks only basic Spanish and has no experience in diplomacy, Bloomberg reported. Now, ambassadorships have been used to pay back big campaign donors, but they are not frequently awarded to business associates. Trump was reportedly the first president to hand plum ambassadorships and senior administration roles to members of his costly private clubs. Buy an ambassadorship. I mean, Trump's just an earner. He's got to get his cut.
Dansez maintenant, tout l'été, vous serez des cigales qui dansent, balancent. Au gris du vent léger, quand l'hiver sera venu, vous prend au dépourvu. Vous danserez main dans la main et attendant l'été prochain. Dansez maintenant, tout l'été, aimez-vous sur le sable. Dansez maintenant.
Well, David Bowditch, McCabe's replacement here at the FBI, is now in the crosshairs. This is by Max Kushner out of Newsweek. Newsweek learned that an FBI official who served as an associate deputy director under James Comey and Andrew McCabe is replacing McCabe as acting deputy director. In other words, an associate deputy director under James Comey, who was also apprised of Comey's meeting with Trump when Trump demanded fealty and loyalty and a little bit of ring kissing before the ass kissing. Now, this is also reported by CNN, NPR, and Fox News. An associate deputy director, David Bowditch, was the third-ranking FBI official. It is widely reported that McCabe stepped down as deputy director amid allegations of bias and misconduct regarding the investigation of Hillary Clinton's email practices while Secretary of State. Oh, they're going to do that. Oh, we're just looking out for the good of Hillary. They want her in jail. Bowditch became associate director, deputy director in April of 2016. In that role, he oversaw most of the Bureau's non-operational branches and divisions, such as personnel, budget, administration, and infrastructure. Previously, starting in 2014, he was assistant director in charge of the Los Angeles field office. Before that, he led the counterintelligence division at that office, overseeing all international and domestic terrorism investigations. And he joined the FBI in 1995 and at various times was a SWAT team operator and a sniper. Looks like he's going to be taken out. Figuratively, okay, come on. Bowditch is known for his work in response to the 2015 mass shooting in San Bernardino, California. But Republican lawmakers and conservative commentators have called for a purge of the Bureau's Comey-era officials. Might be disappointed given his former proximity to Comey and McCabe. In testimony before the Senate Intelligence Committee last June, Comey said he had spoken to senior colleagues, including Bowditch, about Trump's asking Comey to have the FBI back off its probe into Michael Flynn because of that apparent conversation and because he was the number 3 official under Comey. Bowditch is a potential witness into whether Trump obstructed justice by firing Comey. Last June, Senator Dianne Feinstein, the ranking member of the Senate Judiciary Committee, requested that the committee interview Bowditch and other FBI officials as the panel investigated Comey's termination. Before his departure, McCabe told Bowditch and other senior employees that they might have to serve as witnesses in Robert Mueller's investigation into the Russian meddling of the 2016 presidential election and possible coordination with the Trump campaign. As a senior official, Bowditch was also involved in conversations following reports about the so-called tarmac meeting between then Attorney General Loretta Lynch and former President Bill Clinton, while the FBI's probe involving Hillary Clinton was ongoing. And documents show that Bowditch and Comey discussed the reports via email, and then Comey went before America and said, "She's a witch." And the next thing you know, we're just about ready to start writing Cyrillic. All right, that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for today, but we will be back tomorrow for Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. That's what we do on Wednesday. That's our daily special, and stay tuned to the rest of the day to Netroots Radio. Our homepage player should be up later in the day, so check that out, and we will see you tomorrow in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon mon jardin d'hiver. Ma robe à fleurs sous la pluie de novembre. Tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre comme au long de golfe clair, t'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma robe à fleurs sous la pluie de novembre. Tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum, 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 dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum, 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 dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver, dans mon jardin d'hiver.